Texas. A land of sprawling deserts, sun-baked plains, and rugged, independent spirit. It's a state famous for its size, its history, and its pride. But beneath the surface of this proud land lies a darker history. A history written in blood, tragedy, and sorrow. A history that refuses to stay buried. Tonight, we journey into the shadowy heart of the Lone Star State. We're counting down the top 10 most haunted places in Texas. From the ghosts of the desolate desert to the cursed souls of forgotten ranches. But be warned. The stories you are about to hear are not just campfire tales. They are echoes of real pain, documented by historians, and witnessed by countless, terrified visitors. After this, you may never look at the wide, open spaces of Texas without wondering what, or who, is looking back. 1. The Driskill Hotel, Austin. A Romanesque castle of elegance and luxury in the heart of the state's capital, built on a foundation of shattered dreams and a suicide that forever stained its halls. The history begins with Colonel Jesse Driskill, a wealthy cattle baron who opened his grand hotel in 1886. He staked his entire fortune on its success. But just 2 years later, a harsh winter and financial ruin crushed him. He lost his beloved hotel, and in 1890, he died, heartbroken, never having reclaimed his empire. But his spirit never checked out. The paranormal activity is centered on the Colonel's lingering presence. The scent of fine cigar smoke wafts through empty corridors. The sound of heavy, booted footsteps follows guests when no one is there. Men, in particular, report feeling an overwhelming sense of being watched, of not being welcome in what was once his domain. The climactic story comes from the infamous Suite for 29. A young woman on her wedding night, tragically, took her own life in that room. Since then, guests have been awoken by the sound of desperate, heart-wrenching sobs. Some have seen the apparition of a woman in a vintage wedding gown, her face etched with eternal grief, staring out the window at a happiness she can never have. The Driskill Hotel stands as a monument to Texas' ambition, but for Colonel Driskill and his spectral bride, it is a gilded cage from which their souls can never escape. 2. The Yorktown Memorial Hospital. A place that was meant to be a sanctuary for the sick, but became a factory for suffering, where the cries of the dying are now a permanent part of the soundscape. The history is one of grim irony. Operated by the Felician sisters from the 1950s to the 1980s, this hospital treated patients with tuberculosis and, later, alcoholics. It was a place of immense pain, where many succumbed to their illnesses. Darker rumors persist of questionable treatments and neglect, adding a layer of malice to its past. The paranormal encounter here is not for the faint of heart. Visitors speak of the air becoming thick and heavy, making it difficult to breathe. The smell of antiseptic and decay clings to the rotting walls. Disembodied moans and coughing fits echo from empty wards. But most chilling are the reports of shadowy figures, some resembling nuns, gliding silently through the crumbling hallways, forever tending to patients who are no longer there. The climactic story involves a specific entity known as the Creeper. Explorers on the upper floors have reported being followed by a hunched, shadowy figure that crawls along the walls and ceilings. It moves with an unnatural, jerky speed, and many have felt an icy, skeletal hand brush against their leg in the darkness, a final, terrifying examination from a resident that never clocks out. Yorktown Memorial Hospital is a monument to failed healing, where the sickness of the past has infected the very walls. the Goatman's Bridge, Denton. A rustic, seemingly peaceful bridge spanning a quiet creek that serves as the hunting ground for a creature born of pure, vengeful hatred. The history is rooted in a lynching, a story so common and tragic in its time, but with a terrifying, supernatural twist. As the legend goes, a prosperous black farmer named Oscar Washburn lived near the bridge with his family. He was well-liked, and because he owned goats, he was called the Goatman. One night in the 1930s, a mob of Klansmen, enraged by his success, came to hang him. They dragged him to the bridge and threw a noose over the side. But when they looked down, Oscar was gone. They later found him at his home and, this time, succeeded in their brutal murder. They decapitated him, and his head was never found. But Oscar, or what was left of him, did not rest in peace. The paranormal encounter here is visceral. The air temperature drops dramatically the moment you step onto the bridge's creaky planks. People report their cameras and flashlights dying without explanation. You might hear the distant, frantic bleating of goats, or the heavy, cloven-footed footsteps of something that is no longer man. The climactic story is the source of the creature's name. Many who have taunted the spirit, calling out Goatman, have been answered. They see a large, hulking figure emerge from the trees, a man with the burning red eyes and horned head of a goat. It charges with inhuman speed, letting out a guttural roar that smells of grave dirt and blood. Those who have escaped claim they were pursued by the sound of its hooves long after they fled the bridge. The old Alton Bridge is a stark reminder that some acts of hatred are so vile, they can warp a soul into a monster. The Baker Hotel, Mineral Wells. A towering, abandoned Art Deco masterpiece that once drew thousands to its healing waters, now, it draws only the desperate, the curious, and the dead. The history is a classic tale of boom and bust. In its 1920s heyday, the Baker was a resort for the rich and famous for its crazy water that was said to have curative properties. But after the resort culture faded, the hotel fell into decay, taking with it the memories of glamorous balls and secret affairs. It's also the site of a grim tragedy, the death of a young woman, either by suicide or murder, who fell down an elevator shaft. The paranormal encounter within its dusty ballrooms and decaying guest rooms is relentless. The sound of big band music and ghostly laughter floats from the grand ballroom. The faint scent of a woman's perfume appears and vanishes. But the most active spirit is that of the hotel's founder, T.B. Baker. His apparition, a tall man in a suit, is often seen standing on the mezzanine, watching over his crumbling empire, a permanent scowl of disappointment on his face. The climactic story focuses on the 6th floor. Here, the spirit of the woman who died in the elevator shaft is said to reside. She is a playful, yet terrifying, presence. Guests and paranormal investigators have reported doors slamming shut on their own, their hair being pulled by unseen hands, and the sound of a woman's hysterical crying echoing from the elevator shaft that was once her tomb. She is a soul trapped between floors, forever reliving her final, fatal drop. The Baker Hotel stands as a hollowed-out monument to a forgotten glamour, a party that ended decades ago, but whose guests never quite left. The Espantosa Ranch, near Victoria. A working cattle ranch on the vast, unforgiving Texas plains, cursed by a violent death and guarded by a spectral horror the locals call La Lechuza. The history is short, brutal, and shrouded in legend. In the late 1800s, a cowboy named Vidal and his partner got into a dispute over stolen cattle. The argument turned deadly, and Vidal was shot and killed, his body left to rot under the harsh sun. Before he died, he is said to have cursed the land, vowing that no one would ever find peace there. And he has made good on his promise. The paranormal encounter here is the stuff of rural nightmares. Ranchers have reported seeing a phantom herd of cattle stampeding across the fields, only to vanish into thin air. The sound of a single, unseen gunshot rings out on quiet nights. But the most feared entity is La Lechuza, a massive, witch-owned owl with the face of an old woman. Its piercing screech is a harbinger of doom, and it is said to attack those who dare to speak ill of the ranch after dark. The climactic story was documented by a skeptical journalist who stayed the night. He set up recording equipment in the main house. In the dead of night, he was awoken by the sound of something massive scratching at the walls and roof. A deep, guttural voice whispered his name. When he played back his recorder, he captured the clear, unmistakable sound of a woman cackling, followed by the frantic beating of enormous wings. He left before sunrise and never returned. The Espantosa Ranch, whose name literally means frightening, is a place where the old curses of the land are still very much alive. The Alamo, San Antonio. The shrine of Texas liberty, a place of honor, courage, and sacrifice, where the echoes of a 13-day siege and a brutal massacre have forever stained the ground. The history is well known, but its paranormal weight is immense. In 1836, nearly 200 Texian defenders, including legends like Jim Bowie and Davy Crockett, were killed to the last man by the Mexican army under Santa Anna. The mission chapel became a slaughterhouse, its walls pockmarked with cannon and gunfire, its floors soaked in the blood of heroes. That blood has left a permanent stain. The paranormal encounter here is one of respectful, yet intense, energy. Tourists and staff report seeing full-bodied apparitions of soldiers in period dress, wandering the grounds with confused or determined looks. The sounds of muffled musket fire and Spanish commands can be heard in the pre-dawn hours. Many feel sudden, overwhelming waves of sadness, fear, or anger, the residual emotions of men facing certain death. The climactic story comes from the most hallowed part of the site, the chapel. Here, the spirit of a man believed to be John, one of Davy Crockett's Tennessee volunteers, is often seen. He appears as a tall man in buckskin leather, looking lost and weary. He has been known to tap visitors on the shoulder or whisper the word help directly into their ear, forever seeking aid in a battle that was lost nearly 2 centuries ago. The Alamo is more than a historical site, it is a spiritual wound on the landscape, where the veiler of the past is forever locked in a desperate, ghostly struggle. The Bragg Road light, in the Big Thicket. An 8-mile stretch of deserted, dirt road cutting through a dense, swampy forest, where a single, mysterious light has been luring travelers to their doom for over a century. The history offers several explanations, none of which can fully explain the terror. Some say it's the ghost of a railroad brakeman decapitated in a tragic accident, still swinging his lantern as he searches for his head. Others believe it's the spirit of a Spanish conquistador, forever searching for lost treasure. The most plausible theory is a natural gas phenomenon, but those who have seen it up close swear it is anything but natural. The paranormal encounter is a slow, deliberate dance with the unknown. You drive down the pitch-black road, cutting your engine. You wait. And then, you see it. A single, bobbing light in the distance. At first, it looks like a car headlight, but it never gets closer. Instead, it swells in size, changing from white to yellow to an angry red. It dances, it splits into multiple orbs, and it seems to pulse with a malevolent intelligence. The climactic story is a warning. A group of teenagers, determined to solve the mystery, decided to chase the light on foot. They ran towards it, but the light retreated, leading them deeper and deeper into the swamp. Suddenly, it vanished. As they stood in the utter silence, they heard a low growl from the bushes behind them. They turned to see two glowing red eyes staring back. They ran in a blind panic, stumbling through the muck, convinced they were being hunted. They made it back to their car, but to this day, they refuse to speak of what they believe was waiting for them in that darkness. The Bragg light isn't just a ghost story, it's a predator, using curiosity as its bait. 8. The Presidio La Bahía, Goliad. A perfectly restored Spanish fort that stands as a monument to Texas history, and a mass execution so horrific it shocked the nation and damned the ground. The history is one of the darkest chapters of the Texas Revolution. In 1836, following the Battle of Coleto Creek, Colonel James Fannin and nearly 400 of his men surrendered, believing they would be treated as prisoners of war. But under orders from Santa Anna, they were marched out and executed in a cold-blooded massacre. Their bodies were burned and left to the elements. The energy of that betrayal and slaughter is palpable. The paranormal encounter here is intense and sorrowful. Apparitions of soldiers in tattered uniforms are seen kneeling in the courtyard, as if awaiting the firing squad. The smell of smoke and gunpowder appears without source. Visitors report hearing the sound of distant drumming, followed by phantom volleys of musket fire that send birds scattering from the trees in the middle of a silent afternoon. The climactic story involves the spirit of Colonel Fannin himself. He was the last to be executed, forced to watch his men die. His ghost, a tall, distinguished man with a look of profound sadness, is often seen in the chapel, sitting in a pew, head in his hands. But he is also known to be protective. On several occasions, tourists who have shown disrespect, mocking the dead or stealing artifacts, have reported being shoved violently by an unseen force, a clear message from a commander who is still watching over his men. Presidio La Bahía is not just haunted, it is a place of profound, unresolved grief, where the trauma of a massacre replays on an endless, ghostly loop. 9. The USS Lexington, Corpus Christi. A colossal, retired aircraft carrier known as the Blue Ghost, a veteran of World War II that now rests in the harbor, but whose crew of 300 souls lost to fire and kamikaze attacks, are still reporting for duty. The history is one of battle and tragedy. The Lexington saw intense action in the Pacific. In 1944, a Japanese torpedo struck her, killing 50 men. Later, a kamikaze plane slammed into her island, killing another 50. While the ship survived, the lives lost in those violent, sudden attacks never truly left their posts. The paranormal encounter aboard this floating city of steel is disorienting and claustrophobic. You walk through the endless, narrow passageways, and you are never alone. The sound of running footsteps echoes from the deck above when it's empty. The ghostly smell of burning flesh and electrical fires fills certain compartments. Full-bodied apparitions of sailors in 1940s-era uniforms walk through solid bulkheads, their faces smudged with soot and terror. The climactic story is perhaps the most famous. In the ship's engine room, where many men died, a phenomenon known as the Whistler resides. It is an entity that communicates. Investigators and crew have asked questions and received clear, intelligent responses through a series of distinct, sharp whistles, the same kind of whistles used by sailors to communicate over the roar of the engines. It has even been known to mimic the voices of loved ones, calling out names in the darkness, trying to lure the living deeper into the ship's mechanical bowels. The USS Lexington is a tomb of heroes, a ship that refuses to let its crew demobilize, forever sailing on the haunted seas of the afterlife. And now, finally, the most haunted place in Texas. 10. The Marfa Lights. Out in the vast, empty Chihuahuan desert, near the tiny town of Marfa, lies a mystery that has defied all explanation for over a century. These are not ghosts of people, but perhaps ghosts of the land itself. The history is a blank slate. Since the 1880s, people have reported seeing strange, spectral lights dancing on the Mitchell Flat. They appear with no pattern, no source. Scientists have proposed theories: headlights from a distant highway, swamp gas, atmospheric reflections. But every single theory has been debunked. These lights predate the automobile. They move with an intelligence that physics cannot explain. The paranormal encounter is primal. You stand at the official viewing area, the desert wind whipping around you, the sky an infinite blanket of stars. And then, you see them. Orbs of light, sometimes white, sometimes red, sometimes green. They bob, they weave, they split apart and merge again. They dart across the horizon at impossible speeds, and then they vanish. You are left alone in the immense, silent darkness, feeling smaller than you ever have before. The climactic story is not one story, but the collective testimony of hundreds. In 1973, a group of pilots chased the lights, convinced they were aircraft. They flew towards them for miles, but the lights always stayed just out of reach, before suddenly blinking out of existence. But the most terrifying accounts are from those who have tried to approach them on foot. They describe the lights leading them miles into the desert, only to disappear, leaving the person disoriented, lost, and with the overwhelming sensation that they are being watched by something ancient, something alien, something that was here long before us. The Marfa Lights are the ultimate Texas ghost story. They are not a residual echo of a human tragedy. They are a conscious, intelligent, and utterly unknown phenomenon. They are the sentinels of the desert, a permanent mystery in the heart of Texas, reminding us that some shadows were never human to begin with. You've now journeyed with us from the cursed deserts to the blood-soaked forts, from the glamorous hotels to the asylums of the damned. You have walked in the footsteps of cowboys, soldiers, and pioneers, and the things that followed them. So we have to ask you, after hearing these tales, would you dare to spend a single night at the Espantosa Ranch, listening for the screech of La Lechuza? Or would you brave the endless corridors of the USS Lexington, following the sound of a ghostly whistle? Let us know in the comments which of these locations terrified you the most. If these stories of desert ghosts and cursed ranches sent a chill down your spine, do this channel a great service, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with a friend who loves a good scare. And finally, to ensure you never miss another journey into the shadows, subscribe to Ghostly Tales, and ring that notification bell. Because the dark has countless stories left to tell. Until next time, sleep well, stay spooky,